Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the French Connections Weekend Edition. My name is Daryl Bradford Smith. Today's date, December 16th, 2006. It's a Saturday, ladies and gentlemen, Saturday night here in France. We've got a 34-degree temperature here with driving rain. So I'm wondering if it's going to drop a couple of more degrees. We're going to get some snow. Could be. It'd be nice to have some snow. I haven't seen any since last year. But that being said, we've had a lot of things hit the airwaves recently, especially with this Iran conference that has been going on here. I looked at it, Eric looked at it. It seemed to us that somehow either the Iranians got duped into bringing on a couple of clowns into their conference, and set up, or they did it intentionally. We haven't been able to suss out whether it was an intentional act to destroy their credibility, but they brought a guy named David Duke in. David, by the way, had a wonderful tete-a-tete with Wolf Blitzer, and he gave Wolf Blitzer quite a black eye. However, it has worked in the favor of the Zionists in that David Duke's ties to this conference and his ties to white supremacist groups across the country, and his continued ties, and his old membership, and it was an old membership, and when he was, I think he was in his early 20s, he was part of the movement for the Grand Wizards and whatnot of the KKK. But what most people don't know is the KKK was formed by Masonic lodges. Now, again, we get back to the Masonic lodges. Now, who started the Masonic lodges? We know Zionists did. It's a Jewish conspiracy that dates back even before the recent era. This goes back all the way to Weishaupt and having New Bohemians come into America, set up these lodges. But I thought I'd bring in our resident expert on many subjects and a friend of mine, Eustace Mullins, because Eustace has more to say about subjects such as these than anybody. And I want to talk a little bit about who's behind some of these people, such as American Free Press, a guy named Mark Lane, and others. But I'll bring them up right now. Eustace, are you with me?
Yes, indeed.
Well, Eustace, you know, this conference, it garnered a lot of attention. However, the attention it got was quite negative, and most of it was about David Duke. And now David, of course, says some interesting things. He does say some positive research things about, but nothing new. Never anything new.
Oh,
and here's the problem I got with him, and maybe you can confirm this. He's so tainted by the connotations that and his associations that anytime you see his name, you already know the press is trying to discredit someone. Am I correct in thinking that?
Oh, yes, they use David like that all the time. They used David when I went to his New Orleans conference last year, and then David was there only in New Orleans to fight me when I got there. He begged me for 6 weeks to attend this conference. I told him I couldn't afford it. Then he told me he would raise money. He raised $1,200 to pay for my expenses to come down there.
Mm-hmm.
And when I got to New Orleans, he embezzled every penny of it. I had no room reservation, no meal money, nothing. And so he had me up a barrel.
Yeah, he's a real character, isn't he? Well, and he's been known to like to toss his money on the roulette wheel occasionally, didn't he?
Oh, he's a great gambler, womanizer, and drinker. And David tries to be all the things that bad boys are.
Yeah, well, and his proclivities may be exactly why he fits right into the mold that we've developed. You know, they don't pick useful idiots for no reason. They pick them because they are just that. They're able to be controlled. And
David always does what he's told to.
Yeah. Well, what we've discovered is that there seems to be a direct association between David Duke and the Southern Poverty Law Center. And why? Now, guess who they brought out as the rebuttal person for Duke onto CNN? They bring out the associate director, a Jewish guy from Southern Poverty Law.
Oh, my gosh, that whole Morris Dees crowd. You know, they have $60 million in cash they've raised.
They do.
It's a gold mine.
Well, what is the history of that organization, and do they have ties to Mark Lane?
Oh, yes, they'll work together. Well, you know, Morris Dees started out, he was going to be a Klansman in the South, and he was going to get on to the anti-Negro movement. And he quickly switched sides when he found that he couldn't raise any money by attacking the blacks, and so he decided to work for them. And that's when the money started rolling in. Jewish groups in New York poured in tens of millions of dollars. He was rolling in money.
Now, they seem to have taken full control of it through the Anti-Defamation League of B'nai B'rith.
Oh, yes, they're definitely an ADL agency. When you say Southern Poverty Law Center today, you're saying ADL.
Well, now, these folks, what we know they do is they go out and create hatred and then seem to fight it.
Oh, yeah, they're agents provocateurs all the way.
Yeah.
They're there to create situations.
Well, so one of their main go-to guys has been David Duke, and of course, as soon as he got off the air speaking, they brought this Southern Poverty Law Center guy on, and it was remarkable that this association has not been exposed better. And I thought that maybe you had some historical references or some anecdotal stories about things that you've seen over the years referring to the relationship between Southern Poverty Law and the way they use agent provocateurs to get their hate message out. Wasn't there a fella in Stokey when they were running the Nazis? Wasn't that a big boon for Southern Poverty?
Oh, that they really, with that Skokie deal, they hit the front pages. And because Chicago's a great news center, you see, the big news associations are there. And so they took this Skokie thing, and it was totally artificial because Michael Collins, who was supposed to be the great Nazi, turned out to be a Jewish boy.
You couldn't, you know, if somebody told you this, you'd say, get out of here. But you know something, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to tell you, Eustace is right on the money. And this is one of the reasons why I have told you so often that people over at AFP and people like David Duke, while they do speak a lot of facts, they do that to bring you in. They have to have enough truth, Eustace, to dupe their followers.
Oh, yes, they have the sucker play all the way, the come-ons. And once they get you in their tent, they've got you.
Well, and it seems as though a lot of very powerful and well-placed money has found its way into their hands as a result of seemingly being fighting, you know, they seem to be fighting the bad guys, but when you look under the veil, they're with the bad guys.
Oh, well, Mark Lane, you find people like Mark Lane. Mark Lane was a boyfriend of Eleanor Roosevelt, and he was a well-known Jewish communist. And then he turns up as the editor of Cardo's paper, The Spotlight. And he ran the whole thing, and he ran it into the ground, and so that Cardo tried to get a good friend of mine, an old friend named Bill Gill. He wrote a book called On International Trade, and he was a very well-known and socially recognized man in all up the East Coast. So Cardo comes in and asks Bill, who was broke at the time, he said, well, you take over Spotlight for $75,000 a year. And so Bill told him, he says, I can't work for Mark Lane. Well, nobody could work for Mark Lane if they were sincere in the freedom movement.
Well, what is Mark Lane is, of course, he's Jewish. Mark Lane is not his name.
Oh, I have no idea what his name is. It's probably Opowitz or something.
Okay. Well, you know, the simple fact is, when Christopher Bolin was beaten up, Willis Cardo offered the services of Mark Lane as his lawyer.
Oh, yes. And, you know, Mark Lane has a perfect record. He loses every suit that he engages in for a patriot.
Well, see, this is the other thing, because we got this guy Mike Berger doing the same thing for a lot of the 9/11 people.
Oh, yes.
And, you know, when you take a look at this stuff, see, once you've got the flow of the way it's done, you start piecing together how it's been done in the past as well. Now, the Southern Poverty Law Organization, they're centered out of Atlanta, aren't they?
Yeah, it's supposedly a Southern group. And, you know, it's supposed to furnish lawyers for oppressed poor black people. But in all the years that Morris Dees has been running it, he's refused to have any black lawyer work for them. He only has white lawyers.
And usually Jewish lawyers.
Oh, no, they're almost always Jewish. They do that in New York.
So what is the way that they actually, I know that they go out and finance. They have financed some activity up in Idaho in some of the this militia movement stuff and I think they were doing it for the ADL in order to whoop up some. This was during the Clinton era. They needed to make these militias look very dangerous.
Oh, they did. The ADL claimed that the militias were the greatest threat to the whole country. And I knew all the militia people out there. They were very hardworking. They didn't have any dime of money. And they were living on a shoestring. And the ADL is trumpeting that these are the great threat to the whole United States.
But see, it seems like once those militia movements were targeted, they were infiltrated, and then they were used as provocateur groups that could be used as enemies. In other words, some of those groups were actually fabrications, weren't they?
Oh, they didn't exist. This is a favorite technique of Southern Poverty Law Center. They put out long lists of 375 so-called hate groups in the United States, and most of them are non-existent. They might have 3 groups, and they say they got 375.
Well, it's no surprise to us, as soon as, like I said, David Duke got off of his presentation on CNN, the commentator that was brought up was the Associate Director of Southern Poverty Law. It happened to be a Jew that was interested in spinning David Duke's story. And, of course, they used that Duke story to discredit that Holocaust conference. Now, one thing I'd like to maybe toss around here is why would the Iranians select David Duke as a participant in such a conference unless they themselves are part of a lie?
Well, you wonder, because David is always a front man for somebody. He's working for somebody whenever he makes his appearance, and he gets tremendous press coverage all over the world.
Well, press coverage goes hand in hand with Jewish-controlled press.
It does indeed. I've told people for years you cannot trust anybody who gets on national television because they own them, and that's the only way they can get on that national television.
Well, they tried to bring me on to make a mockery of my work. The 2020 people started talking to me about doing a segment, and they wanted to find a way to make me look like a lunatic.
Well, either that or a big smear, that's all.
Well, you know, of course, on the cutting room floor, they can make anybody look like a nut.
Oh, they sure can, and everything serious that you said will be edited out.
Yeah. Well, now that we have an understanding of the basics behind this, I take a look at the radio networks such as Genesis and Public Broadcasting, and what we've noticed over the last few months is they've almost filled their entire list of broadcasters with Jews.
Oh, yes.
They've got Abramson and then Solomon, and I mean the list goes on, and Burmis and Barrett, and it goes. I mean, it's unbelievable. And I'm wondering, are they so worried about the message now, or don't? I mean, what's going on? Do you think that they would fill up their entire roster with Jewish presenters?
Well, that is crucial because we're moving into a very crucial period. You know, the Jews are running scared because they got the whole world against them, and they realize they got to trim their sails. That's what they're doing. Yeah.
Well, see, and here's the problem. You know, the Zionist element within the Jewish community has the rank and file, hardworking, workaday Jew completely buffaloed. These people in Brooklyn that go to work every day that are giving money to the ADL, they don't know what's going on in their name.
Well, I don't think hardworking people give any money to the ADL. I think it comes from all the big Jewish bankers. Comes right off Wall Street. You know, Wall Street just announced that they put out, they made so much money last year that they gave out $50 million in bonuses to the New York offices. And they said every bit of that bonus money is going to be spent on $25 million apartments in New York. They paid $25 million for a fairly modest apartment.
Well, actually, the public that they fleeced pays for it.
The money comes from these bonuses and so forth. They don't work for it, that's for sure.
Well, you know the work that Eric, myself, and Bolin have done, and of course we follow up on most of the things you've been doing for years. So we've got them nervous about the things that are happening. I mean, we've got this subject on everybody's lips. Now, what is the reason why people like Mark Lane have not been outed more? I mean, it looks like to us that American Free Press should be in the trash bin already.
Oh, yes. Mark Lane should have been exposed years ago. But yeah, everybody knew that they had this Mark Lane, this Jew was running the whole Spotlight operation. Carter was just a frontman.
Well, why can he still be there in that control position and not have been outed already?
Well, you know, he's never been outed. People muttered under their breaths about Mark Lane, but nobody ever complained publicly about it. And when somebody like me went to the Spotlight offices, Mark Lane treated me like dirt.
Yeah. Well, that wouldn't surprise me either. And of course, you know, our false friend over there, Mike Piper, ended up at that conference too, and he's the...
Oh yes, he's right in the middle of everything right now.
Yeah, he is. He's trying to keep him. Carto and Lane are the American Free Press, and of course, you know, they won't ever go anywhere where serious research is being done.
Nothing. There's no serious research ever appeared in that paper.
No. Well, in fact, Christopher Bolin has told us on numerous occasions that when he did find something very significant out about 9/11, they wouldn't print it.
That's a pattern that they follow. And you know, Carto always claimed to be a booster of me, but in the last 5 years, he has never printed one article. I would send him important articles, and let's say, boy, this is something we should get into. And it never appeared. My name never appeared on the masthead of the Spotlight in all the years I knew Carto.
Well, and here's the other person that Duke was promoting, and we knew he was a shill from the beginning too. And David Irving down here, and of course we know David Irving was living in the southern homosexual haven of Key West, and we know that he had a proclivity for you know, midnight flings with the boys, and it seems as though he's a guy that has turned out, for whatever reason, he may have started out as an honest broker for facts, but it's certainly not the case today.
Oh no, every time I went to a David Irving lecture, he would repeat this tired story, but he met some German major after the war, and he was telling him that he had seen the executions of all the Jews all over Europe, and he personally had witnessed it and horrified it. But he never gave this German major a name. He just said a German major. And that's typical of the sort of thing Irving does.
So, so why one must wonder why he would have been jailed, and we've speculated in our own private conversations, Eric and I, he might have been caught as a pedophile or something, and they might have said to him, "Look, you're going to go to jail for us because we need a guy we need to frighten the truth speakers out there away from talking."
Well, more important than a jail sentence is sometimes a period of vacation and retraining for a person like David Irving or David Duke. You know, David Duke just did a 4-year income tax prison term.
Did they make him go away for 4 years?
4 years. He was away for 4 years.
Where they put him in one of these federal vacation prisons?
Well, no one seems to know where he was during that time.
They don't know what prison he was in.
I never could find out what prison he was in, or whether he was in prison in Russia or the United States. The whole thing was very vague, so it must have been a cover-up of some kind. And you know, after doing this so-called prison term for income tax evasion, then he appears on worldwide news as a new and much more influential figure.
Well, he's tried his darndest to weasel his way into our camp, and of course we've thwarted him at every turn because the guy is just a sack of lies. But you know, he does win over people because he does have a certain capacity to speak flamboyantly.
Oh, he's like an Elvis Presley. I heard one talk he gave there in New Orleans, and he had the old ladies weeping, you know, because you never heard such faults in your life. From anybody in the whole freedom movement. I never heard anything like it. It was an incredible performance.
Well, he is. He's an actor, and he's good at it.
He's an actor, but he's totally insincere. There's never any sincerity. Only a fool would ever be taken in by him because he's so transparent in what he does.
Well, so now, you know, I'm glad we did this little talk here, Eustace, because, you know, this guy is garnering a lot of attention, and
he is. He's moving right up in the top row. It's amazing. And this guy has no achievements in his life. It's incredible.
Well, and here we are. You know, we're struggling for any recognition we can get, and of course, as soon as he gets that mainstream media attention, bingo, he's a big hero.
Oh yeah, he's right in front there. He becomes number one.
Well, what do we do to combat this false flag stuff that they do in America through Southern poverty law, and how many other people are involved? Is it possible that Southern poverty law is behind the financing of some of these patriot radio stations, like Michael Corbin, who refuses to talk about Jewish issues, or some of these others?
No, I think they're financing everything because Southern poverty has been exposed many times as having a nest egg from $60 to $100 million, and no one seems to know where it comes from. It comes from Jewish people in New York. And he's sitting on this money. He's never paid any taxes on it because he's a tax-exempt group, because he's fighting for the little man.
Oh, yeah. As he scurries off in his limousine, probably to a rendezvous with an underage child or something.
Well, he uses this $100 million to attack people like Richard Butler. Now, Richard Butler I knew well, and it was an old man, a tired old man, and they went in and took his little camp up in Idaho, took it right away from him with the fake court proceedings.
How did that happen? What's that about?
Well, what they did, they hired a couple of provocateurs to roam around Butler's place at night, and he had guards, and so the guards tried to chase them away, and so they sued him for intimidation and threats and so forth, and they took his entire property and put Butler out in the gold. The poor old guy died alone out there, no property whatsoever.